Welcome to Headline Hub Updates. Subscribe and press the bell icon for more updates. The news broke like a thunderclap across the Pacific. U.S. nuclear submarine docks in the Philippines. USS Ohio's arrival sparks fury in Beijing. Tensions skyrocket in South China Sea. The sudden appearance of one of America's most powerful and secretive naval assets in such a contested region sent shockwaves through the global community. The submarine, a ghost of the deep, had surfaced, bringing long-simmering tensions to a boiling point. The arrival of the USS Ohio was a carefully choreographed piece of military and diplomatic theater. Its imposing gray hull in a Philippine port was a stark symbol of the deepening alliance between Washington and Manila. The United States was not just watching the South China Sea, it was actively present, reinforcing its commitments with the full weight of its military might. The timing was no accident, coming amid aggressive Chinese maneuvers and growing anxiety among Southeast Asian nations. The USS Ohio, once a shadowy instrument of deterrence, was now at the center of a very public confrontation. The world's attention was fixed on this volatile waterway, raising profound questions about the future of peace and stability in the Indo-Pacific. The USS Ohio is a titan of the deep, a symbol of American naval power. Once a ballistic missile submarine, it was transformed into a guided missile submarine, an SSGN, capable of launching up to 154 Tomahawk cruise missiles. This immense firepower makes it a floating arsenal, able to project force from beneath the waves. Its nuclear-powered engine allows it to remain submerged for months, traveling undetected. The Ohio can quietly patrol an adversary's coastline, gather intelligence and, if necessary, unleash a devastating barrage of missiles with little warning. It also serves as a clandestine special operations platform, covertly deploying Navy SEALs and other elite teams. Its arrival in the Philippines signals not just firepower, but the potential for discrete, specialized missions. When the USS Ohio surfaces in a strategic location, it's a deliberate and potent signal. It demonstrates a capability few nations possess, warning rivals that American power can appear anywhere, anytime. The submarine's presence is a clear message. The strategic balance in the South China Sea is being actively managed by the United States. Sending the USS Ohio to the Philippines was a calculated move in the U.S Indo-Pacific strategy. For years, Washington has watched China assert dominance over the South China Sea, building islands and intimidating neighbors. The deployment of such a high-profile asset is a direct challenge to this behavior, a modern form of gunboat diplomacy. It reassures allies, especially the Philippines, that the U.S. is willing to back its commitments with real power. Docking the USS Ohio in a Philippine port sends a clear signal of solidarity and reinforces the Mutual Defense Treaty. The submarine's presence also serves a crucial intelligence purpose, monitoring Chinese naval movements and gathering vital data. This operational presence gives the U.S. a strategic advantage in any potential crisis. Ultimately, the deployment is part of a broader strategy of integrated deterrence, using military, diplomatic, and economic tools to dissuade aggression. The USS Ohio is not just a weapon, it's a symbol of comprehensive American strategy in action. The message, the Indo-Pacific will remain free and open for all nations. China's reaction to the USS Ohio's arrival was swift and furious. The Chinese Foreign Ministry condemned the move, accusing the U.S. of militarizing the region and threatening stability. State media launched a propaganda campaign, warning of grave consequences and accusing Washington of turning the Philippines into a pawn. China painted the U.S. as an outside aggressor meddling in regional affairs. Beijing lodged formal protests and urged Southeast Asian nations to resist being drawn into a great power conflict. The message China would not be intimidated and viewed the submarine's presence as a direct threat to its security. Beyond rhetoric, China's anger stems from the USS Ohio's ability to operate undetected, undermining its defensive perimeter. The submarine negates some advantages of China's artificial island bases and forces the PLA Navy to expend resources tracking it. Beijing's fury is about both symbolism and the real military threat the USS Ohio poses to its control over the South China Sea. China didn't stop at angry words. It launched military exercises in the South China Sea. The plan dispatched warships for live-fire drills near the Paracel and Spratly Islands, broadcasting dramatic footage to showcase its readiness. Chinese fighter jets and bombers conducted combat patrols, testing regional response times and demonstrating air power. China likely intensified anti-submarine operations, deploying submarines and patrol aircraft to hunt the USS Ohio. This cat-and-mouse game beneath the waves is a critical, hidden aspect of the current tensions. The military response signals to the U.S. that its presence will be met with robust countermeasures and reminds regional claimants of China's military superiority. China's actions are a deliberate performance of power designed to assert control and challenge the American presence. The South China Sea is one of the world's most critical maritime crossroads. One-third of global shipping, over $3 trillion annually, passes through its lanes, connecting East Asia with the world. Any disruption here would send shockwaves through the global supply chain, causing shortages and economic instability. For China, Japan, and South Korea, these sea lanes are vital for energy imports, making control a matter of national security. China's efforts to dominate the South China Sea threaten its neighbors' energy security and give Beijing immense leverage. The region is also rich in oil and gas, fueling overlapping territorial claims and tense standoffs. The South China Sea is a flashpoint for both resource competition and global military rivalry, especially between the U.S. and China. The USS Ohio's deployment and China's reaction are symptoms of a larger struggle for influence over a waterway indispensable to global trade and security. The risks in the South China Sea are real, as history shows. In 2001, a U.S. Navy EP-3 surveillance plane collided with a Chinese fighter jet over the South China Sea. The American crew managed an emergency landing on Hainan Island, where they were detained, sparking an international crisis. For 11 tense days, diplomats negotiated for the crew's release, while China demanded an apology. The standoff ended with a carefully worded U.S. letter and the crew's return, but the damaged plane was disassembled and studied by China. The incident left a deep scar on U.S.-China relations and showed how quickly routine encounters can escalate. Today, with more ships and aircraft operating in close proximity, the risk of a similar accident is even higher. The deployment of a stealthy asset like the USS Ohio adds new complexity and risk. A misunderstanding involving a submarine could have far more severe consequences than the 2001 collision. The echoes of Hainan are a warning. The dangers in these waters are real and ever-present. The world must heed these lessons to avoid disaster. The USS Ohio's deployment has put the Indo-Pacific on high alert. For America's allies, it's both reassurance and risk, a sign of U.S. commitment but also a reminder of the dangers of great power rivalry. Smaller Southeast Asian nations worry about being caught in the middle, forced to choose between security and economic interests. Many governments are calling for de-escalation and dialogue, urging restraint from both superpowers. Global markets are jittery. Even the threat of disruption in the South China Sea can raise shipping costs and threaten economic stability. A sustained crisis could trigger a global recession. The United Nations and international bodies are urging adherence to international law and working to reduce the risk of accidental clashes. The world is watching because the stakes are incredibly high. The South China Sea is not just a regional dispute, it's a test of the international order. The outcome will shape global peace, security, and prosperity for decades to come. As the USS Ohio patrols and Chinese warships drill, critical questions shape the region's uncertain future. Will this escalation lead to de-escalation or a dangerous cycle of action and reaction? Can the US and its allies maintain a united front, or will China's pressure create divisions? The long-term stability of the region depends on whether nations can resist China's attempts to rewrite the rules. Is stable coexistence possible? Or is a new Cold War inevitable in the Pacific? The world wonders if crisis management mechanisms are strong enough to withstand the pressures of great power competition. As the silent hunter glides through the depths and the dragon flexes on the surface, peace in the South China Sea rests on a knife's edge. The world watches, hoping leaders in Washington and Beijing have the wisdom to avoid plunging us into conflict.